In 3, 2. Why is it bugs on me?
Babe, you know what? You're going to have to ignore the bugs. You're going to get bit. We outside. All right? It's behind closed doors with the Brookses. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back right after this. So, guys, it is good to be back with you. If this is your first time on our channel, I want to say welcome to our channel. I'm Glenn P. Brooks Jr. This beautiful, light-skinned, well, kind of bronze today, young lady is none other than
Cherie A. Brooks Jr.
And today we're going to talk about a subject that I think that is super, super huge. First of all, before we get started, how many parents do we have in the room? Put your hands up. Put me in the chat. If you're a parent, put I am a parent, and put how many kids do you have? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? I have a friend who's coming to visit, and they'll be here for our 25th wedding vow renewal. They have 7 children. So however many you have, put it in the chat, because today we're going to talk about Parenthood Confessions. So, with that being said, here's what I know that most people are not willing to share, are not willing to admit. And that is that we've made mistakes as parents.
No.
Yes, we have.
No.
I know I have.
I have been the perfect
Listen to
parent.
me. Listen to me. And I know that a lot of people like to say things like, what's wrong, baby?
Make sure lightning not going to strike me.
Oh,
I just
Lord
was
Jesus.
checking.
Listen.
I just was
But the
checking.
problem is that a lot of people, babe, I don't know why. Why is it tough for parents to admit that we've screwed it up? Why is that even a thing?
Well, I don't think it's a problem for parents it's hard for parents to admit it to their children. That they've made mistakes. They'll tell their friends. They'll talk to other people.
Right.
But most parents do not admit to their children, hey, I screwed up. And I think that's one thing for us where we differed when we realized that we made mistakes, that we screwed up. We were able to talk to our kids and say, hey, and apologize and say, hey, could have did that differently.
Yeah.
Sorry, did it that way.
Yeah.
I'll try to do better, but yeah, I'm not perfect, and I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know why parents feel like they have to be the perfect parent. There is no perfect parent. You're going to make mistakes.
100%. Let's get that established.
You're going to screw up.
Yeah.
Because we're not perfect.
Parenting is one of those jobs, guys, that you really don't get the chance to really, truly evaluate your job until after the job is done.
Right. It's on-the-job training.
And when we say on-the-job training, not many people train for 18 years on their job to begin to look back and evaluate how they did. But one of the things, sitting out here at the park with all these children playing, one of the things I love about Panama is family values is in full effect.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen parks, and trust me, in the U.S. you got plenty of parks, but the amount of children and their parents here is just mind-boggling. And I think that as we talk about these 3 things that I want to drill down on relative to Parenthood Confessions, our hope is, although our children are grown, that we can say something in real time that allows you to make an adjustment in real time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's talk. What is one of the first things that if you had to make a confession and say, boy, if I could get that one back?
Oh, I was controlling.
Say it louder.
I was controlling, so I overmanaged my children's lives, particularly my daughter. I had my daughter before you and I got married.
Yep.
I had her, I was 20 when I had her.
Yep.
Through my previous marriages, raising her prior to you and I getting together, I had been a single parent for a period of time. But I realized that I was controlling. I wanted things the way that I wanted them. And so therefore I suppressed who she was because like my house had to be perfect. It had to be immaculate. I had major OCD. But I was extremely controlling and controlled her, how she responded, her emotions. I was extremely controlling. I was going to manage every aspect of who she was and not allow her room to be who she was. And that's one thing that I'm grateful when you and I met. because you are much more of an outgoing person than I was at that time, it allowed her the room to be able to blossom
Right.
and come into herself.
Right.
Whereas had, I was changing, but I wasn't there yet.
Right.
And, she would have very much been stuck and pigeonholed into this little mini me in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so when we talk about over managing children's lives, y'all, we're really talking about trying to, when parents get into this mode of trying to dictate every aspect of their life. And I can say, now that our children are grown, our oldest is 38, our son at the time of this recording is 30. We have 3 grandchildren. I can tell you that over managing doesn't work.
Right.
You cannot dictate every aspect of your child's life. And when you try, here's what I believe happens. You rob them of the muscle development opportunity of being able to make solid decisions that they can live with.
Mm-hmm.
There is a muscle, I believe, that's developed when it comes to building relationships, that when I control every aspect of my child's life, I'm choosing her friends. And we'll say, I don't do that. But a lot of times it comes through your second guessing their choices.
Right.
And I don't mean that you don't get to parent and you don't get to lay the foundation. But at certain ages, they are going to need to have the opportunity to choose certain things, make certain choices, and live with them. And I think that that is good training because it teaches them that was a bad decision. Now we can talk about how would we do that different.
Right, and I think that what most parents, well, I'm not going to talk about most parents, I'm going to talk about us. So what we did, even once you and I got together, there were still certain aspects of our kids' lives that we still tried to control. We had our values, we had our convictions on certain things, and we pushed that upon our children, not allowing them the room to come up with their own values, to come up with their own convictions about certain things. So if I said, you shouldn't, well, the biggest thing was the whole dating thing.
Yeah.
We had this belief from our past experiences that all little boys was nasty and all they wanted from a girl was sex.
The coochie.
So you can't be friends with a boy. All he wants is to get you in the bed.
Right.
And so we didn't allow...
Which is true on a lot of levels, depending on the age.
But
Let's just be there.
Yes, but we didn't allow her the opportunity to develop friendships.
That part.
With boys where she could discover where that line was, put up her own boundaries.
Exactly.
We put the boundary in place, which was just stay away.
Yeah.
There was we didn't get to train her in that area because we didn't allow her to fail in that area. And I think that one thing as parents, you want your children to fail in safe country while they're at home with you, but you have to give them the opportunity to be able to experience different things in order for them to possibly fail.
So when she says fail, I like the idea of in safe country. So when you realize, like I grew up and in high school I wrestled, right? You wear certain protective gear so that you don't develop certain issues. So one of those things are the earpieces that cover your ears. And it's to help from you developing what you see in the MMA as cauliflower ear. That is learning how to develop in safe country, right? So when you're training children and when you're raising children, I think that I would have benefited had I loosened up the reins and let them make certain decisions that ultimately would cause them to fail, but being able to ensure that when they failed, they did that while we could still teach and train and kind of help them navigate through a failed experience. Because at the end of the day, and I'm going to be dead real, I'm sure I won't get a lot of thumbs up on this one. I controlled my daughter based on how I used to roll as an individual. And I parented her out of fear.
And the other thing, when we're controlling as parents, we handicap our children because you're not allowing them to, like you said, operate that muscle of them critical thinking. If I'm making all your decisions for you, you never get an opportunity to figure it out.
Right.
You never get an opportunity to figure out what, maybe I'll go left, maybe I'll go right, because I'm giving you a roadmap for you to follow, and I'm telling you don't deviate from this.
Right.
So God forbid, so if you're using Waze or some type of navigation system, if that's the only way you know how to get somewhere because that's the roadmap, if it goes down, you can't even figure out, well, how do I get back home?
Absolutely.
And so what
that's
we did,
good.
what I did
what happens
in a
if
lot
the
of
GPS
areas,
goes down?
I gave specific roadmaps on certain areas and like you do this way. There is no alternative. So then when I wasn't there or when that system no longer worked, what do you do?
Right.
And now you're stuck trying to figure out, well, what do I do? How do I figure this out? But now you're maybe grown.
Yeah.
You're on your own and you're trying to figure this out. You didn't get a chance to practice that in safe country where you could have, maybe you were supposed to go left and you went right and you wound up at a dead end. But you could have called me and be like, hey, can you help me get back home? But now you're out on your own.
Exactly.
And you're not going to call me. You're not in a position necessarily to call me, or I'm not available because you're not home. Whereas when you're a child, if you go out, you go take the car, I'm on alert because you're out.
Right.
I'm staying up till you get home.
Right.
But as an adult, you know, you go out on the weekend, I don't even know you're gone out. You've
That
gone
part.
out. I
That
don't
part.
know where you are.
That part.
Every minute that you're moving. So if you go out and you get lost, I might be out. I might be doing anything and may not take the call at that moment because
you're just not available.
You're an adult.
Right. And it's funny because when our daughter went away to college, we got the chance to experience that because this kind of dovetails into the second thing.
Yeah.
So we will say things like, okay, so you're 18, now it's time for you to fly the nest. Well, I'm going to promise you right now, flying the nest unprepared can result in certain disaster. And I have a responsibility as a parent, while I have you in those previous 18 years, to train you so that when I do push you out, I know for a fact that your wings are developed. Your ability to land is developed. Your GPS tracking system is developed. And you don't find yourself out there by yourself.
Right. And I just want to sidebar real quick. This whole idea of pushing your children out when they're 18 is something that in our community has become the norm. But if your children are not prepared to go out on their own, don't push them out the nest. You're not going to give them the keys to the car and they haven't taken driver education. They haven't, taken the driver's test. They haven't gone through their hours with driving with you. You're not going to just give them the keys to the car and let them go.
No.
Why? Because a car is a deadly weapon. They
Yep.
could kill themselves and kill somebody else. They could cause a lot of harm. The same thing when you just push your child out there and they're not prepared, they can damage themselves. They can make some life-altering decisions because they haven't been prepared.
Right.
And you haven't made sure that they're prepared. And what I mean by prepared is I'm not saying they got to have a whole bunch of money in the bank. I'm not saying that they got to have a rock-solid plan. But they need to have been able to demonstrate that they can make decisions on their own and that they can figure out how to solve problems on their own so that when those things, because let's be real, adulting is hard.
Yeah.
Adulting, there are choices and decisions you have to make every day. So there are training tools that we have to do with our kids in order to prepare them. And I know there were some things we did do right.
Yeah.
But I think that the controlling of trying to manage their activities was one of the things that I think we definitely missed it on. And then that leads into number 2, which is setting unrealistic expectations. And I'll let you.
One of the things that I realize, guys, when it comes to setting realistic expectations, you want your children to win.
Yes.
And I think that many of us get discouraged when we don't feel like that we've had a series of wins. So therefore, we never build confidence. We never build this notion of a healthy independence, right? Where you can do it on your own, you're willing to do it on your own, but when you need help, you don't have any pride, you'll ask for help. I think that when it comes to setting realistic expectations or unrealistic expectations, the problem is that now when those expectations are not met, the consequences also are unrealistic, meaning you are now handling spilt milk because you expected that they never would spill it. If I expect that you will spill the milk, then I'm managing my expectations. So when it's spilt, I don't give you a response that does not match spilt milk. When I have a realistic expectation that at 2 years old, you're probably going to drop the cup. You're probably going to get food on the floor. Now I don't find myself crushing your spirit because I'm trying to manage something that's unrealistic.
Right. And so I want to get a little transparent here.
Sure.
So when it comes to setting unrealistic expectations, oftentimes we have these lofty goals and dreams for our kids. We want them to go to college. We want them, and when I say lofty, it's lofty because if it's not what they want, it's lofty.
Right.
And I think that we have to recognize that parents at a certain age, and it's usually around middle school, they start making their own decisions. Now, whether you agree with their decisions or not may become an issue, because if they're making decisions based on what they want, and it doesn't line up with you, there may be consequences that come along with that, but they're making their own decisions. And I think oftentimes when we have these lofty goals for our children or expectations for our children, and we see they're going in that path, and this is where we made a major mistake, and I'll say, because our children were succeeding in certain areas, we took their successes as our own successes.
Right.
And so you talk about it, you put them up on this pedestal, and then when they do make another decision, or in our mind fail, which is not necessarily a failure, they changed their mind.
Right.
They simply changed their mind. They were doing this.
Now they don't want to do that.
They don't
anymore.
want to do it anymore. Now you feel like it's a failure. You feel like they've done something to you.
Right.
But that's because you set an unrealistic expectation
That's
about
good,
a certain
babe.
area of their life, which was based on your idea,
Yeah.
not theirs. And this is the tricky part, because oftentimes children will go along with your idea of what you have planned for them because you're their parent.
Yep.
And so if I say I want you to go to college, we've been talking about this since you were 5 years old, and
I have a degree. Your mother has a degree.
we
all your aunties and uncles
it's
have
just what
degrees.
we
It's
do.
what we do. That's the business.
When they
the
get to
family
high-
business, and we get degrees.
Right, they get to high school and they're like, I don't really want to do this, but they're not a strong enough personality to come against your parents, and most kids aren't. They're going to be respectful. Now they'll act out and show you in their actions that that's not what they want to do.
Yeah.
But what we typically do as parents, we push past those actions and be like, well, you're just cutting up.
Right.
Let's get back on the right track. Instead of seeing them cutting up is a cry for help.
Ooh, that's good.
Them telling us,
That's
I
good.
don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Because if they want to do it, guess what? They'll do it.
They'll do it. I think that's where, for me, I'm now setting, so just to kind of recap, Cherie said something that I thought about. I didn't realize the amount of pressure I was putting on my children by doting on them.
Yeah.
By bragging about what they do. And I know how parents feel, because let's just be dead real. When you do the hard work as a parent to position your child for greatness, they take you up on that offer and then become great. Let's go ahead on and it's a foregone conclusion that you had a part in that process, right? However, if you're not careful and you cross the line of talking about that too loudly or too specifically, like I did, in public environments, because I was in a leadership position, and so when people listen to me and they listen to my different illustrations or what have you, if they included my children, oftentimes what would happen is my children would develop this I'm in a fishbowl concept.
Right.
This happens with preachers' kids all the time.
Yes.
This happens with leaders of organizations all the time, particularly if it's a family-run business. This even happens on an entertainment level, where now that child is expected to play basketball at the level of their Hall of Fame parent.
Yeah.
That's unfair.
Right.
And it's an undue amount of pressure that's not needed. So what would it look like for me to celebrate their wins in private? Celebrate the fact that they did that. Celebrate the fact that, Cherie, you did a good job. That was a great game plan. Glenn, you did a great job. You got out the way. And let's leave it at that, and then take the pressure out the room for them to continue to thrive.
Right.
I wasn't aware of that. I didn't understand that way. And so it wasn't until my children were grown that they were able to say, we didn't like that.
Right.
We didn't appreciate the fact that, every time we did something great, you would run to, and in this day and age, that was before social media.
Right.
But in this day and age, it is posting about it. It is all that sort of stuff, when they did not ask for that pressure.
Right.
And so I want to encourage you guys to think through that, because if not, you're going to find yourself, after they've gotten older, really resenting the fact that you put them under pressure that they didn't need to be under.
Right. And so with that, you have to give your children their autonomy.
Yep.
When they have wins, when they succeed in certain areas, now you want to affirm them at home. You want to affirm them personally. You want to, always encourage them, but you don't have to do it publicly.
For sure.
Then it made it hard for them to come have conversations with us when they change their mind.
Or if they fail. So now
Right.
the pressure is, I messed up. And just like my my successes were public, even if my parents don't speak on the mess up, the truth of the matter is that my failures are now public as well. I want you guys to think very long and hard. One quick way around that is getting their buy-in or asking their permission.
Oh.
Okay?
Why I gotta ask their permission?
Because it's their whole person. And they're the ones that are going to bear the brunt of this being public. Ask them, hey,
Right.
I think this is a great thing. I'd like to share this. Are you okay with that? That could be within the family dynamic. It doesn't even have to be publicly. Now, the truth is that in most cases, they're going to probably say no, which is going to rub you the wrong way, because now you're going to get checked in the sense of, why do you really want to do this? Do you want to do this because you're celebrating them, or are you trying to do this because you're trying to celebrate you? And that's the part that I didn't get until much later, and it was after the fact. But I'm grateful I learned this, because I want to pass that forward. That is something that's really important for you to get.
Right, and the key to that is that, do you run so quickly to share their failures as you do their successes? No, you don't want to tell anybody about their failures. You're going to hide that. You're going to keep that. That's where, in our culture, a young teenage mother gets pregnant, you're going to send her off to go stay with the aunt down in the country.
Back in the day when we was growing up, that's exactly how we did it.
Then they just show up and nobody knows about the child. You hide their failures.
Right.
But you
highlight
all of their successes, but it's not about their successes. It's about you touting how good a parent you are.
And I need us to stop that.
I raised the child that did this,
I need us to stop
that,
y'all.
and they did this, and that's not fair, because number one, it's not your accomplishment.
Yep.
It's theirs, and you should ask them, and this starts even when they're young. This is not, you don't wait till high school. You ask them, do you mind if I share this?
Right.
Can I call your aunt and tell you? It's nothing worse than being a child and you're in one room and you overhear your parent on the phone sharing your business with a family member or a friend. And I can remember situations that me as a child, how that would make me coil. It was like, oh, why are you doing that?
Right.
But as a child, you don't have the voice to say you don't like it.
That's so good,
this is where
Sheree.
you give your children a voice by asking them, is it okay for me to share this? I'm proud of you. I'd like us to celebrate you. But can I publicly
celebrate
share
you?
Can we publicly celebrate you? And if they're not, if they say no, okay, fine. Well, we're going to do our own private celebration because we're proud.
And we're gonna keep it within the family. And
Right.
I believe, Sheree, that is so huge. I could talk, because I'm literally in real time thinking how I could have done that differently.
Right, because it takes the pressure off.
It takes the pressure
all
off.
eyes are, when you are sharing their success, all eyes are on them. And let's be honest, people are watching them, waiting for them to fail.
Especially if you are a person that's given to success as you as the adult.
I got a real live example I can give.
Go ahead with your personal one.
Right. So I remember, we had always touted about our daughter and all her successes. She was a straight A student. She won all these scholarships to college. All these successes that she had. I remember, I think it was in her freshman year, somebody sent me a message and was like, oh my God, I saw your daughter at a club. Did you know that she was at a club? And I'm like, okay. But it was like they were waiting to find something to dig at.
Yeah.
You put her up as her being this perfect child, but do you know that you're perfect child? And going to the club ain't bad.
No, right.
She was of age. She was 18. She was at a club that was, 18-year-olds could go to. It's not like she was doing anything,
right.
Bad. And,
right.
And even if she was doing what she do. But the fact that and that was a wake-up call for me when that person sent me that message. I'm like, really, people, why are you paying her that much attention?
That part.
And it wasn't out of concern thing.
Yeah.
It was you really just trying to take a dig.
And that's the answer to the question. Why are you paying that much attention? Because there are people who are not celebrating your wins with you.
Right.
They are paying attention because they're waiting for you to mess up.
Yes.
So that they can expose that, because that is their life. That's how they get their pleasure in life. So I'm going to quickly go to the last one. It's getting a little windy out here. And again, as we're sitting here in Parque Omar, it's a park in the middle of San Francisco, which is a neighborhood here in Panama City. You would not imagine how many people are in and around this place, but you don't hear a bunch of yelling, screaming, because they're celebrating privately in a public place.
Right, it's clusters of
It is clusters of people that
families together.
they're eating together and they're doing it. This is not about a grandstand, and I think that has to be something that's cultural for us.
Yes.
That we want to now do the most for a regular accomplishment.
Right.
And I'm not hating on that. Like, do you? But at some point, if you don't ask your children what their thoughts are, I guarantee you that years later, and again, we started this conversation by saying parenthood is one of the only jobs that you don't really know what job you've done until after it's over. It's not until they're 25, 30, 35.
When they can tell you.
When they can tell you and they have the courage to say, if they ever say anything, that really messed me up.
Right.
That really put me in a place where I struggled more than I needed to. So let's go to number 3.
Dismissing children's emotions and opinions. And I think that as parents, typically we do dismiss our children's feelings. We tell them how they should feel. You know, your child cries, you know, stop crying, don't cry. I'm gonna give you something to cry about. If they're crying, they're crying. They're emotional. Let them be emotional. It's about teaching them how to manage their emotions, how to not let it turn destructive. But I know for me, I'm so grateful, and as I'm grateful today that our grown children have been able to open up and share how they felt about things as they were growing up that they did not like, that they disagreed with. Now, it was a hard pill to swallow.
Right.
It's hard hearing that you failed as a parent in certain areas. But I'm grateful that our children were mature enough and healthy enough to be able to share how they felt. I can't go back and change it, but at least I know that how to correct my behavior going forward. I know for me as a child, I held on to everything because I did not have the ability to share my feelings, my emotions with my parents. Mm-hmm. My parents were from that generation, you know, children to be seen, not heard.
Right.
You didn't have opportunities, and my family were not talkers. They didn't talk about anything. So wasn't nobody sitting there having no heart-to-heart conversation about anything. But I'm super grateful that our children as adults have been able to do that, and I'm able to witness them with their children, our grandchildren. They allow our grandchildren to share how they feel, share their emotions, and they don't discount that. And we were able to, we missed it a lot more with our daughter because she was older. We started getting it right with our son. As he was coming along, because he came to live with us when he was 13. And so we started figuring some of that out, and we're able to build a healthier relationship in that way with, you know, acknowledging his emotions and his feelings. But I'm grateful because what happens is when you don't allow your children to share how they feel, what their emotions they're going through, they suppress that. That leads to depression. That can lead to, you know,
serious,
them acting
bad
out
decisions.
in different things because they're not able to share with you, and they're sharing with the wrong person. And not getting wisdom. And so, I mean, I think that that's something we have to learn how to teach our children how to express their feelings respectfully.
Right, absolutely.
But teach them how to express themselves, because also that gives them the power and the strength as an adult to be able to do that on the job. When they get married, when they're in a relationship, they're able to now communicate how they feel and not shy away from things and not practice getting along to, you know, going along to get along. They can really share how they feel.
So, guys, if there's nothing else that you walk away with, I want you to walk away with that parents are people too. We make mistakes on a regular basis, and I just had this conversation with one of my sisters the other day. And I said one of the biggest gifts I believe that parents can give children is the gift of change. Giving your children the gift of watching you evolve as a parent and being able to have it said that, yeah, they screwed that up, but I watched them correct that behavior, correct that attitude over time, and it benefited me as a result of that.
And one piece with that piece, the whole correcting it over time, don't just correct it with your grandchildren. Correct it with your grown children.
And that's why we're having this conversation, y'all, because a lot of what we're talking about, we didn't get to correct this until our children were grown. And they were in college, and we didn't get a chance to even speak to a lot of this until then. So what we're hoping is that you will hear this while your child is still in middle school.
Right.
While your child is still, able to switch it up.
And even if your children are grown, correct it with them. Start
Oh, I see what
correcting
you're
the behavior.
saying.
Don't just, because this is what we'll do. We'll say, "Oh, this is my second chance at parenting," and you do it right with the grandkids.
But you never
But
go
you
back.
never go back
Oh, that's
and
good.
and try to
Make amends.
make amends with your adult children.
Yeah.
That's been one of my goals, has been trying to make amends with my children, because I don't, yes, I could pour love, I could do it all right, because now I recognize where I made mistakes. I could do that all with my grandchildren, but I want my children to know that I know that I did it wrong. I know that I made mistakes. I'm trying to be better, but it's not about me being better with your children. It's about me rectifying and reconciling the relationship with you.
Listen, we're going to come back again. Over the last 25 years, Cherie and I are just reflecting and thinking about all the things that we've done, not only to make things work, but what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and can we share just a little bit of insight to other people as to how they perhaps could do things differently. If you haven't checked out the descriptions below, please do that. We are relationship coaches, and we do work with people in real time. We have a relationship academy and some different things, a bunch of books that we've written, you name it. We've got a ton of tools and resources to help you with. Go check that out. But at the end of the day, here's what I can promise you. You cannot get to any place of significance by yourself. And the reason is because
we all
need
some
help. Y'all be good. We'll see you on the next episode. Click the link. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, share this out, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.